Before I begin, a word on the two organisations that I speak on behalf of. I'm primarily a member of the Zeitgeist Movement, a global decentralised grassroots organisation founded at the very end of 2008. The term Zeitgeist means the dominant intellectual, moral and cultural climate of an era. The closest transliteration is the German spirit of the age. The term movement simply denotes motion or change. As such, the Zeitgeist Movement calls for a change in the dominant intellectual, cultural and moral climate of the time. The Zeitgeist Movement is an activist and communications arm of another much older organisation called the Venus Project, which under the direction of Jacques Fresco and his associate Roxanne Meadows has focused on the technological redesign of an entirely new social system known as a resource-based economy. At its core, the application of the current state of science and technology for social concerns sits, using the scientific method and practicality to maximise the quality of life for all people. This is to be achieved through tangible solutions to our problems we face instead of hollow rhetoric and opinion. Our reasoning behind our conclusions are not based on political opinion, nor are they idle speculation, nor are they stopgap measures to treat the symptoms of a society as a psychiatrist will treat a psychological aftermath of a patient's experiences. We would rather minimise and, if possible, wholly preclude the situations that got the patient in front of the psychiatrist in the first place. Our main focus, therefore, is to pinpoint the root causes of these ill effects and to propose straightforward, concrete solutions based on the inferential logic and the scientific method, and applied for global concern holistically. I wanted to address in the introduction some common barriers we have when it comes to the analysis of economics in our current society. In today's world, many of us question the institutions we're brought up in and by which we're influenced. In fact, it's become a slightly more promoted disposition that questioning authority is healthy than in prior human history. After all, questioning religion no longer is tantamount to being burnt at the stake. And the development and adoption of the scientific method has allowed humanity to update and revise its knowledge of the physical world by systematically adopting a viewpoint of skepticism while hypotheses are tested and until they are proven true or false, and adopted or not. Indeed, any and all social protest is essentially a questioning and a conscious rejection of some pre-existing or presented framework. Yet, of all the institutions common across the globe, be they political, social, religious, or national in origin, none has remained so thoroughly unquestioned and beyond even the most basic analysis or understanding by most people than the monetary system itself. Even as the system of monetary finance is displacing more than 6 million American homeowners and half the world's 6 billion people are now classed as suffering through poverty, 1 billion starving, a figure that is up, by the way, by 80 million since the early 1990s, the system remains unscrutinized despite its global presence. Here are some reasons why. Economics is often viewed as a rather dull and abstract subject. In fact, I'm amazed you're even all here today. Financial news tends to be presented and dominated by complex-looking graphs, which don't allow for any real understanding of the subject being discussed, silently promoting the idea that this is an area best left to the experts, to well-paid economists and bankers. Abstract terms like derivatives, mortgage-backed securities, and strangely named institutions like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are not only hard concepts for me, I don't encounter these abstractions in real life. No one has ever sold me a mortgage-backed security. I've never been contacted by Fannie or Freddie, and I'm sure it's taken quite a few days for some people other than myself to even catch on to the fact that these aren't even real people, they're institutions. Economics isn't like football. It's not like the physical process of shopping. And even worse, it sounds like it might be about maths. We shy away from this mess of abstract terms, and we fear that we might not understand them and suspect that we would dislike them if we did. Others simply don't see a need to question the monetary system. After all, isn't it simply the method by which goods are transferred, and so anything that simply represents that method is natural, necessary, and will function as dictated by the needs of a populace to earn, buy, and survive in their social constructs? We do all rely on resources in some form or other, and since we don't have absolutely everything, and a unified, preferably global exchange mechanism seems the necessary steps in easing any process of acquisition and hence survival. how can it be questioned any more than we question the need for air? For others still, the monetary system which applies to their community and day-to-day routine seems to be embedded so heavily in the framework of their lives that it appears not to even be a system at all. It is part of the landscape, invisible to their day-to-day lives, exactly because it is a function of their day-to-day lives. Like the ancient music of the spheres, which was theorized by ancient philosophers when describing the nature of planets in orbit, it is this ever-present thing from birth and therefore invisible and undetectable. It's not so much that it's hard to single out for people. It's that the very idea of singling it out seems impossible, for it doesn't even occur as a possibility. It doesn't appear as a separate entity. Maybe it's also because economics relies on a numerical bias, on mathematics, equations and graphs. It seems therefore likely to be based on logic, measurability, and as true and immutable as those of physics, biochemistry or other sciences. And while elements of physics are questioned, revised and updated upon the receipt of proof, physics itself remains entirely intact. In fact, once revisions and corrections are made, physics has itself become a more established entity than it was before. Yet, as we'll find later on, not only are the supposed laws of economics not only based on no real-life reference whatsoever, when the analysis of the processes of money creation, its tangible negative effects upon society, and the behaviours it instills upon and encourages in members of society, one sees that there is almost nothing in the system of modern economics as it now stands that is of any real value to our process and well-being. And yet the most powerful force that has rendered the system of economics as it stands now beyond analysis is this closed-door brotherhood of the initiated guardians of the status quo, who form the population of modern economics. Authorities, credentialed economists trained by the already established institutional logic, CEOs and other lofty and well-paid positions. These are the men and women who should be dealing with economics, not average Joes like myself, right? Well, let me remind you that throughout the glorious period of history known as the Dark Ages, precisely this mechanism of initiation and separation was employed by the Church to avoid its institutional power being questioned, and to keep education, anything it deemed a threat to its establishment, or even reading, out of the reach of the remaining inhabitants of that socio-cultural landscape. This sentiment is particularly well expressed by John McMurtry, author of The Cancer Stage of Capitalism, who writes, "We might say that economics is to the corporate market what technology was to the medieval church." Sorry, theology was to the medieval church. Just as ancient Latin operated in the medieval church to reify dogmas into ritualized sequences, untouchable by the vulgar passage of time, so econometrics, what's wrong with me, functions in today's economics. It conceals the value judgments it assumes in an atemporal algebraic apparatus that is severed from natural language, living reference, and the accountability to its effects. It's a remarkable book. This, however, is changing, and it's changing quite rapidly, much quicker than I actually thought it would, given all of the above reasons why we don't tend to lock in and engage in questioning of this system. In researching this monetary system, I have many a time carried with me large and boring-looking books detailing the history of finance and the way it operates today, which does mean wading through thousands of pages of literature. One evening in a bar, no less than 3 unrelated strangers asked me what my book was about. I have been approached on the underground, that standard haven of uncomfortable silence, by strangers asking me not only what is the book about, but even asking me upon hearing my relatively brief 3-minute elevator talk summary of it, what the answer might be to our problems raised. And more people are beginning to not only to agree that not only on the problem when they are presented with the simple facts, but upon the solution as well. People aren't stupid; they know something's up, and they think it might just be something other than having voted for the wrong politician in the last election. All I wish to do today is to have that same London Underground conversation with you. It's time to question the system that in recent years has become notable by its failure and its damage. First off, the assumption that monetary economics is too complex for normal people like us to understand is completely erroneous. Nor is it a natural part of society anymore, although, as we'll see, it once was, and served fairly interesting functions. And once you understand the methods by which modern